All right, I've recovered from game one, and here we are on King's Cove for game two. It is, of course, Tahn, our Zerg player, in the top left versus Macrosoft playing Protoss. In the bottom right here, it was Tahn that took the first game. Honestly, though, you know, I feel it could have went either way. There was certainly, I think on balance, Tahn spent more of the time in the lead. For my liking, Macrosoft was just a little bit too passive, but arguably the same could be said for Tahn. A little bit too passive as well. Definitely opportunities for him to get in and execute lethal damage. Macrosoft didn't really have those opportunities, and arguably that, you know, or if he did, he certainly didn't take them because he spent most of the time at home. But I did see some really good plays from Macrosoft. I really like the Zealot run-bys. Those are always good in the late game as Protoss, because, you know, you find yourself with an awful lot of excess mineral, etc. So Zealot run-bys are great way to control a Zerg in particular, because hatcheries aren't like planetaries. You know, sending zealots into a planetary is seldom going to, you know, be effective or efficient for you. However, you can definitely get in and snipe a Zerg hatchery. So things looking pretty normal here. This is a good place to park the Overlord, but normally I would send it to here first and then reverse it back to here, just so that you can see the timing, especially against a Protoss. Protoss typically don't have anything that shoots up very, very early. It's going to be a handful of lings coming across the map, and speed is just about to finish up, but it is just a handful of lings. It is only 6 lings here, so unlikely to get too much done. There is enough here to deal with them. Yeah, they get the worker, which is a little bit annoying. But Microsoft does the important thing, which is they don't get into the main base, because that is a real pain once they start nibbling at your workers. So they are kept out. Twilight and Robo finishing up. Oh, okay. I was expecting a Dark Shrine. I've got to be honest. But it isn't a Dark Shrine. It is a Robo base. So perhaps we're going to see some Colossus coming out, or maybe Disruptors. And I would dearly love to see a Disruptor drop in this game. That would be absolutely superb. So double Evo. Let's slow this down a little bit. Double Evo out for Tahn. No upgrades. Just as I said. So it's ranged upgrades coming out. So he's not going to stick on this Ling tech at all. This is mutating into a lair. So you would imagine we're going to see some Hydras, possibly Lurkers coming out. But it's roaches initially. Interestingly, though, no roach speed upgrade started just yet. So normally, if you're going to commit to roaches, that is, there we go. Overwhelmingly, the most important upgrade to get. Roach speed just makes a really big difference to how effective you can be with your roaches. So, army-wise, both of these players pretty close. There's a shield battery here, there's a sentry here, and there's a mortal. You know, so this little collection of units can stop pretty much anything that the Zerg can throw at it this early in the game. Certainly only with 20 army supply. However, if a big old swell of roaches was to turn up, the Colossus would not be so useful. It will be absolutely superb against these lings. Now, on this King's Cove map, it's really easy to hold your third. You've got ramps into both the natural and the third. So, you know, you can just have your army positioned about here. You can have maybe a cannon or a shield battery just to slow anything that turns up down. This worker is going to meet a sticky end when it heads across here. So some lings coming in. Microsoft not really reacting to that. Arguably, with the force fields ready to go, he could have trapped those lings and killed them pretty much for free. You know, a single force field, the Colossus shot. And certainly a large number of those lings wouldn't have made it home again. Hydroden is up as predicted. Tunneling Claws coming out for roaches as well. Has he got Burrow? Doesn't actually have Burrow. So Tunneling Claws is not of use on its own and needs to be coupled with Burrow. Tunneling Claws basically allows roaches to move whilst burrowed. The other thing, arguably, that it does, I think it increases the regeneration rate of roaches while burrowed. So burrowed roaches regen with that upgrade really terrifyingly quickly. So quickly, in fact, that with decent micro, when you've got a big army of roaches, you can look for damaged roaches individually, burrow them, and pop them back up a few seconds later with an appreciable amount of additional health. So, yeah, that's a pretty rapid thing. This coming down, I'd really like to see a full wall here to go with this, and it does look like we're going to see something along those lines. So I think Microsoft, to be fair, had earlier tried to plant the pylon when the Lings came and denied it. 7 minutes 44, no fourth for Tahn, which is of some concern, and the creep spread is getting there, but would like to see this a little bit more spread. Look at all these idle creep tumors. Worth noting, if you play Zerg, that creep spreads faster the more tumors there are, so it is worth having them all next to each other like this, because if you grab these and just throw down a line here, the creep spreads from that way quicker than if you just throw a single creep tumor. So you can really push that creep out. It's a pretty standard thing to have, in a given direction. You have your initial tumor, and you get it to spawn a new one, and you send the queen to drop one next to it, and then those two will spawn two more, and the queen will drop a third next to it, and that's how you kind of multiply up the rate at which you're spreading your creep. This army for the Protoss is actually pretty scary, and the Roach army isn't yet. Now, obviously, that said, it is doubling the supply of the Protoss, and that is of some note. This is a lot of roaches, and I don't know that there's only one immortal here. Colossus are not that good against roaches. Roaches being armored, Colossus do splash, so they're great against light units. They're great against the Hydras. They're not that good against these roaches. However, look how many force fields there are here. There are 5 sentries in this mix, so the Colossus outrange roaches by about 3 miles. So with a handful of force fields, you can really just keep those roaches back and do a lot of damage to them. If I had this sitting at the front of my base, I'd feel very, very safe indeed. Nothing really is going to come and mess with me. Only one Archon so far, a bunch of mutants flying right now. Microsoft would be in a little bit of trouble, and there is no blink. However, Storm is being researched. And there is a single Archon, a couple of Archons, and I'd be feeling pretty nice about this. Now, this army supply is double the Protoss, and that is of some concern. So Tahn, looking to move out, doesn't have a mineral bank, and that's partially because his 4th is so very, very late. 10 minutes here, really, we should have a 5th as well. If nothing else, just for the larva, how do you, you're going to be so light on larva. Now, how much of this army supply is Ling? Because Lings just aren't of any value come this engagement. There isn't a complete wall here. I'm not really sure why there aren't a couple of gateways here just to really make this a narrow choke. The worker going out the front is conveniently actually going to spot this coming, and that's a real win for Macrosoft. Because he's going to see this, so he knows what's there, but he isn't moving. I think I like the hallucinated Colossus. I don't hate it. They will don't send them out on their own, no, because no, don't do this. This is kind of a waste. Those hallucinated Colossus, and I don't know why you're coming down this ramp. Please back up to the shield batteries, please. No force fields appearing just yet, but that is a lot of Guardian shield. As I mentioned before, they don't layer up, but why is Microsoft taking this fight out of the range of his shield batteries? This makes no sense. Had he taken this fight here with force fields, he absolutely smashes that army, but that's an awful fight to take. As a general rule, Protoss like chokes, Zerg like open. It's as simple as that. In general, you want to force your Zerg into narrow chokes because they don't like that. Zerg work by numbers, so they need plenty of space so that those numbers can become effective. Protoss don't. They have much more expensive units. You know, pound for pound, a Protoss army will always be smaller than a Zerg army. So Protoss armies generally pretty happy with narrow spaces like this, while Zerg armies are not. So you never want to walk down here and engage here. You always want to be engaging back here. All the more so, given that there's 2 shield batteries right here. Again, little zealot run by. The corruptor is going to manage to clean up this prism. He doesn't have prism speed yet. I'm not really sure how many workers he actually got killed. Only 3. But this is a lot of lost mining time. A lot of workers now not actually doing anything. Now, with that said, both players are sitting on pretty considerable banks. And I'm a little worried by the lack of production. Only 1 immortal being built right now, only some creep tumors being built. Oh, sorry, to be fair, Tahn is maxed. So I'll take that back a little bit. But, you know, why aren't there hatcheries being produced? Why isn't there static defense being produced? These are the things that you spend your money on once you hit max. More hatcheries so that you can replace this army if you lose it. And static defense, you know, a spore, a spine, just means if the prism comes back, drops in a bunch of zealots, you don't have to worry about it. That is already dealt with. So it just puts the pressure then on the Protoss to try and deny those bases with a much heftier force. Now, there is storm ready. Do these Templars have enough energy? I feel like they don't. The Colossus can shoot the Hydras from quite far away here, and Colossus will crunch through those Hydras pretty quickly indeed. You'd rather the Colossus, I don't know that this Nexus is going to last, you'd rather the Colossus were not trying to fight roaches. Storm is coming though, and Macrosoft again needs to pull back to the sit. Oh, those are, oh my word, the storms are absolutely brutal. But what's Macrosoft doing this far out? I have no idea. I mean, the storms were beautiful, but he had to be retreating the whole time that was happening. Overcharge needs to happen if he's got to have a chance here. 2 immortals are going to come down, and yes, they pack a lot of punch. Finally, overcharge goes down, but it's, you know, there's only 2 stalkers left here. The immortals are doing work, man. But you know, even immortals aren't that good. Surely he can't survive the next wave. There's 128 army supply coming. But, you know, again, Macrosoft, you're engaging down here. When you, like, that's not where to engage this. Let the Zerg come at you. Let the Zerg break themselves on the wall here. And they will break themselves. Trust me on that. You know, those storms were good. You blanketed a lot of area. But imagine if you've backed up a little bit so that the Zerg is funneling through here. Then a single storm sequentially, you know, the 3 storms that were spread across the entire army are focused onto the same units, and you're getting kills rather than weakened units. And similarly, the Colossus splash does stack beautifully when stuff is on top of each other in a choke. So, yeah, Microsoft really needs to sort out these engagements. The next wave of Zerg is coming, and it's going to be problematic. In production, we have got a lot of zealots. Where are those zealots being warped in? At home, I feel like he's got not that much gas, but some Archons in this mix would really add a little bit of heft to this. Archons have 350 shield, is it? So an Archon or 2 in front of a shield battery just makes a huge difference. Look at this Zerg army that is just absolutely lingering, cruising around looking for a fight. I do appreciate that Microsoft really wants to expo here, so he does want to get his army down into a position where he can do that. These zealots unfortunately have been met by a handful of mutas, so he needs to either, well, you want to get a little bit of value out of these. I don't think he's going to get much, so running home isn't a bad choice at all. Yeah, needs to get some shield batteries down here as soon as possible. This is a pretty hard expo to hold, I'll be honest with you. This is probably the easier choice because you can build a wall here, and then you can park your army here where it's covering this. Yeah, to be honest though, really some pushes off 3 bases would have been better. So pulling the Zerg in would have been the better choice and trying to squash the army. The army supplies are as even as we've seen them. There are storms to be had here. Microsoft's going to come down and have a go at this. The storms need to land on the Hydras, and definitely not on your own Void Rays. More storms on the Hydras, please, a bit further forward. But do be careful. Don't walk into storm. While you still see the animation, the storm is still doing damage. So you do have to stay out of that yourself. Does he have any storm left? I feel like maybe one of the Templars has got a storm. And these hydras, you know, with no support from roaches, will disappear pretty quickly. But where are the warp-ins? There's nothing in production except 2 carriers. He's got money. Where's the big zealot warp-in? Because that could make a big difference here. These immortals can't really do anything about those mutalisks, so I'm not sure why they're running over there. This is beginning to look slightly ominous. 138 army supply against 54. The 2 carriers, yeah, you know, if there was 6 of them, that is definitely something, but there aren't. There's only 2, and where's the mining happening? The mutas have absolutely cleaned Macrosoft out. He's down to 27 workers, many of which are in the main idle. Over here, we're not even fully saturated. We're not fully saturated in the gas, so he needs to transfer some of these workers. Ideally needs to get the odd shield battery down. I don't fancy the position here. These immortals, you know, are just going to have to run. What they can do is they can soak up shots from the mutalisks, which means that the workers aren't dying. So arguably that is something. The mutas are actually beginning to drop. You can see just how effective a shield battery can be here. But yeah, you know, he's spending a lot of time chasing mutas around when a couple of cannons is all he needs really with a shield battery. This is a lot of roach. This is a lot of roach, and they're just, I don't know, that many immortals with the carriers. This is a punchy army, but there's nothing. It needs support. The carriers on their own, no, not with the, no. Okay, well, luckily the queens aren't targeting the actual carriers themselves, so he's going to get away with that move. But this army, it just doesn't have enough meat in front of it to soak up the shock. Immortals pump out an awful lot of damage, yes, for sure. These carriers have lost all of their interceptors. He needs to run them because they're not going to do anything fighting here. So all they're going to do is die, and that's expensive. These immortals fighting hydras are going to die pretty quickly as well. They are putting a lot of hurt on these roaches, and arguably what this has achieved has slowed down Tahn's push. But why were the carriers still there, man? Why were they still there? They were paperweights and expensive. Recall those home, regroup, maybe push the immortals forward, and try and snipe down this hatchery, because you'd be pretty alarmed at how quickly 5 immortals just topples a hatchery. So arguably the better play there would be to maybe try and ignore the army, push forward, snipe the hatch, recall what you can get out. But anyway, it is Tahn that takes it and goes 2-0 up, beginning to look slightly ominous. Macrosoft needs to find a way to get out on the map a little earlier, be a little bit more aggressive, and slow down the roach onslaught from the Zerg here. GG.